Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the study of antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I'm your host, Nick Barksdale, and today we are joined by a very special guest, Dr. Miano. Dr. Miano, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Dr. Miano is actually the creator and founder and host of an awesome YouTube channel called World of Antiquity. I can't recommend it enough. And before we begin our series, I want to go ahead and encourage you. Check out the links in the video description below. Subscribe to his channel, click the notification button, and definitely share as much as you can. It's an awesome channel. He's an awesome guy, and I cannot recommend his videos enough. In a variety of online platforms, I have seen a debate rage across the keyboards, and that is whether or not ancient Mesopotamian civilization or ancient Egyptian civilization came first. Dr. Miano, what are your thoughts on this?
I guess you could also throw into the mix, did civilization start in India? Because there are quite a few people that think that too. And it all comes down to the question of what's a civilization? Right? Because when you talk to the average person and they think of a civilization, it's not necessarily what historians or archaeologists are thinking. Civilization, I think in the minds of most people, is just, well, it's just a community of people that grew up and, have, villages or whatever. But more specifically in the technical sense, and because the term is kind of used very loosely and there's not an agreement on it, I think a lot of historians just avoid it altogether. But technically, a civilization is urban society, right? We're talking about cities here. And so what do you look for when you have cities? You look for high populations, intensive agriculture that can feed those populations. You look for a significant division of labor. You look for a record-keeping system. Writing is usually a product of civilization. You look for monumental architecture. All of these things tell you, okay, this is a civilization. But there is kind of some wiggle room there. There's a room for disagreement. When it comes to Mesopotamia and Egypt, part of the argument, a lot of it hinges on who's the first to have writing. Because you're like, well, you got to have writing if you're going to have a civilization, right? And both the Southern Mesopotamians and the Egyptians were working on their writing systems at the same time, okay? So when does it actually become a full-fledged writing system? Because it develops over time. It's little by little. You have proto-writing to begin with before you have actual full writing. And since they're kind of neck and neck, and in one sense, the Egyptians kind of started experimenting with it probably first, or at least had proto-hieroglyphics before there was proto-cuneiform, right? But generally speaking, I lean towards the Mesopotamia side because their fully developed system for writing seems to have arrived just a little bit earlier than the fully developed Egyptian system. And so that's why I lean towards them. But I do want to tell you that it is very, very close. As if we're going to bring India into it, I would say, well, this is a whole can of worms opening up here. But there are people in India who believe that some of the sacred texts, the Hindu texts that are out there, were originally composed very, very early. But we don't have any of the originals, right? It's just a tradition. It's a belief that they go way, way back. But all you can do to date them is go by their contents. And I just don't think that the evidence for their antiquity, their great antiquity, is very strong. It is ancient, but not at the same period that we're talking about with the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians with their writing systems. The Indus Valley civilization does have writing, what appears to be writing. There's debate on that too. But those inscriptions, okay, although old, are not as old as the writings of the original Sumerians and the Egyptians.
I didn't even know this theory existed until I was reading some older books, but apparently there is a theory that there was a Sumerian origin of Egyptian civilization. Have you read that before?
I've heard it around. I haven't really read a book on it or anything.
It was really interesting. I've read a few, and I'm ordering it's super old. I think it came out in like 1926, and it's literally titled "The Sumerian Origins of Egyptian Civilization." I was like, this is going to be amazing to do YouTube fodder with. But Even if it was to like dispel that myth, that'd be very interesting, because I think it's Cambridge Ancient History Volume 2 that talks about they're not sure if the Egyptians are trying to replicate Sumerian cylinder seals, or if they were trading so extensively at the time that they may have just ended up there to begin with. But I thought that was really interesting because I hadn't actually read that before.
It's kind of a tricky situation, because what do you do when you find what seems to be influence from the outside, right? Do you posit that they were simply trading with each other, or do you actually think, well, they must have come here or something, right? And I think you need pretty strong evidence to suggest that there was like an influx of Sumerians into Egypt, or, you know, that I don't know what the theory is, whether they took over or something like that. But if it's just about you're trading stuff with them and you get some of their stuff and then you want to copy it, I think that's perfectly realistic.
Oh, I do too. And it's just like the Minoan, the Minoan genius. We know that they literally borrowed that from the ancient Egyptians. Now, Burnell likes to think that, oh, you know, Egypt went over there and colonized, but we have no proof for this whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today at the Study of Antiquity and the Middle Ages on our series where Dr. Miano guides us through a variety of interesting, obscure, and often controversial subjects, and he sets the record straight. Dr. Miano, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Anytime.
Check out the links in the video description below. It's going to take you to a variety of sources from his academia page to his YouTube channel, and really just enjoy it and take advantage of all the awesome insights that he has to offer us to help us better understand the subjects that we both love.